first this hour, thousands of refugees are said to have gathered near the closed Kyrgyz-Uzbek border, unable to flee the ongoing ethnic violence in Kyrgyzstan. The official death toll has now risen to 176, and tens of thousands have already left the troubled country. Well, the UN Security Council has urged an aid corridor into the south to be quickly established. RT's Peter Oliver joins us live now from the capital, Bishkek, for the latest on this. Peter, are there any signs that the violence could end sometime soon?
Well, one sign that we might have to that end has literally come through in the past few minutes. We're hearing from the city of Osh that police there say that they have control of the city completely now. So that's just literally arrived in the last couple of minutes to me. We'll bring you more on that as we get it later on, but obviously a good sign that fighting seemingly could come to an end in Osh. We have still been seeing up until that news came through, sporadic fighting in both Jalalabad and Osh. As you mentioned just then, the number of people that have confirmed to have been killed has risen to nearly 180. However, previously we were hearing from ethnic Uzbek leaders who said they expected the death toll to rise much, much higher. We're now hearing a similar sentiment from the interim government in Kyrgyzstan. They also believe that this death toll could rise much, much higher, as well as there being many, many people injured, nearly 2,000 people injured. What we are looking at is officials on the streets at the moment security services on the streets trying to disarm people who are still bearing arms, still carrying weapons around, and hoping to try and quell any further shootings, any further violence that way, by making sure people just don't have these weapons. On the Uzbek border, which is now being shut, we're hearing that there could be around 3,000 people trapped on the border. Now, this is after the Uzbek border was opened with Kyrgyzstan on Sunday. Possibly up to 100,000, maybe even more, have crossed over into Uzbekistan. One of the reasons we can't put an exact number on that is the majority of the people that have crossed over from the southern parts of Kyrgyzstan into Uzbekistan are mostly women with children that don't have any documentation, and most women who have been crossing over have had 2 or 3 children with them. We could have a lot more people than we actually think in those camps that have just been set up over the border for refugees. Well, that's one of the reasons that the border's now been shut, because there's simply no more space for those people to be in there to receive the aid that they need. And when speaking of aid, the UN have spoken that they want to have a humanitarian corridor formed so that aid can get from the capital Bishkek, where it's been arriving from all around the world, as well as being collected in the capital itself, so they can get that aid on the road and get it sent down to those people that need it most. Well, the United Nations have also said that they believe over 250,000 people so far have been displaced during this fighting that's been going on for the past several days. And also the UN mentioned, remember, Ban Ki-moon sent an envoy to the country to try and find out firsthand what was going on here. That envoy has reported back suggesting that there are very strong signs that the violence appears to have been organised and targeted. And those are his words, so we'll be finding out later what the UN plan to do.
Yeah, the humanitarian crisis just seems to be deteriorating by the day there. And what are you hearing now from the interim government? What could be its next step?
Well, we're hearing from the interim government that they are they're confident that they can hopefully regain, I beg your pardon, peace in the area. They have asked again for peacekeepers to Russia. There was a big ask really to Russia, a big plea to send troops to the area to maybe help them to try and split the two sides apart. Russia said they weren't willing to do that. Maybe with allies they would send somebody. That's those are talks that are going on at the moment. But what is interesting is that the interim government have said that perhaps they could be able to deal with this themselves should that situation arise. Now, we are hearing that the interim government believe that these attacks were organised to try and disrupt a referendum on the Kyrgyz constitution that was going to be set for the 27th of June. Now, the president of the interim government has said that under no circumstances will that be the case. That referendum will be going ahead. So that's the latest what they have from the interim government. This violence won't be disrupting any election, the referendum that was due to be held on the 27th. That is going ahead.
OK, Peter, I know we'll be crossing back to you as this situation develops in Kyrgyzstan, but for now, many thanks. That was RT's Peter Oliver reporting from the capital, Bishkek. Well, Kyrgyz prosecutors have filed an extradition request for the ousted president's fugitive son, who's been arrested in the UK. Maxim Bakiev, who was reportedly seeking asylum in Britain, was on Interpol's wanted list for alleged embezzlement and abuse of power. Many also suspect the Bakiev family of instigating the current violence in Kyrgyzstan. Laura Emmett explains.
33-year-old Maxim Bakiev, who's the son of the ex-Kyrgyz president, was arrested when he landed at Farnborough Airport. And Maxim Bakiev, allegedly and by many is believed to be a key figure in a key reason why those revolts are taking place, and in fact an instigator of the crisis that we've seen in Kyrgyzstan.
Yes, of course, the ousted president's family, I would say, is responsible for what is going on in Kyrgyzstan. First of all, because the country is devastated economically. You'll never have anything like that in any developed Western country. Bakiev's son, he headed the central agency, I don't remember exactly the name, for innovation and investment. And all the money which was sent to Kyrgyzstan from the United States, it's $100 million, and then from Russia it was about $2 billion. He was responsible for managing these money. Almost none of it got into the Kyrgyz budget.
One of the most relevant things about Maxim Bakiev, with all the unrest that we're seeing in Kyrgyzstan, is a tape that was leaked to the internet about just less than a month ago. And that tape allegedly has the voices of Maxim Bakiev and his uncle, who was the ex-president's brother, who also happened to be the head of the Presidential Guard when that administration was in power. And they were, in fact, allegedly plotting violence in order to retain power. And it's amazing the similarities between what they were saying during this conversation and what we're actually seeing happening in Kyrgyzstan at the moment, this extreme violence. And what Maxim Bakiev is alleged to have said on that tape is if we keep Kyrgyzstan burning, then there's a good chance that we'll be able to get our family back into power, particularly relevant as many sources say that Maxim Bakiev was being groomed by his father to take over the presidency after he retired.